Welcome to Sober Not Sane. I'm Jebb Fink. This is our inaugural show because there's no such thing as a first annual. Anyway, we'll be on Facebook, Instagram at Sober Not Sane, and like us and subscribe at YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcast. Kenneth Locke is my first guest, and you were a special pick. Were you aware?
No, I wasn't, but I'm very happy to be here.
Well, you know what, for a couple of different reasons, because you're also sober but not sane, and an amazing artist.
Well, thank you. Thanks, Jebb.
You going with the deadpan thing for the whole...
I was actually going to start working on my radio voice because I was my...
You're looking for the midnight to 6 shift in the middle of the night?
Well, I did some research, and apparently this is how you talk on a podcast. But I didn't think I could keep that up for very long, so...
No,
No.
you got to talk like yourself. So I was trying to think of how long we've known each other. It's been quite a while.
Over 20 years, because I first met you.
This is always scary for me.
At the breakfast show. My band, because I had a band back then called Gin, and we played.
I would have, at that time when I was still drinking, would have booked you for the name alone.
Yeah, well, it was Gin, Jin, which was, I don't know, a Japanese spirit, whatever, and we were folk. None of us were very good at how we got on the television. I have no idea. I think, we had a good sound. It was neat, but you were the only person afterwards that came up and said, "Wow, that was really good. Thank you." And I remember that. And then, obviously, you're Jebb, I'm me, and we just went our own way. And then,
keep bumping into each other.
Yeah,
everywhere.
Social media.
Yep. But see, I remember you more for photography than for band, and then. Once we got kind of reintroduced, I went to see you do stand-up, which you had not done for 5 years, 6 years.
Yeah, longer. But yeah,
and it was hilarious.
Thanks.
Well, it was great.
You were part of that.
Did I make you go do it?
Well, the way that I described the story to other people is that you were my coach. I would go to your place and I would talk to you, and you'd be busy making stuff, and you'd be like, you got to cut that down, and you got to try this, and you were kind of like the coach from Rocky, making me chase the comedian chicken, but you really made me think about what I was writing, and I would go home and I would rewrite it. And the thing is that I used to do the comedy really drunk, really stoned, and that was my way of buffering.
Yeah.
The nerves. And I remember that I did really great until I didn't do really great. Getting so drunk that it was just embarrassing, on stage. And they put me in a 10-minute spot really quickly.
Yeah.
Probably too quickly for me. And I just remember getting hammered and just completely just stoned and so drunk that I couldn't even articulate.
Yeah.
But I was funny for a whole different reason. And then after that, I was just so embarrassed. And so, and I couldn't look at the same, the guys that had gotten me the 10-minute spot, they were furious with me. I had squandered it because a lot of people work hard to get a 10-minute spot. And then, whatever, I went on. But,
yeah, but you seem to me, like, for the amount of time that I've known you, your focus changes all the time. Like music for a while, then you did comedy for a while, then your photography takes off, and then like you've got so much stuff on the go that it's got to be hard to pick one thing and go, I'm going to be this.
Yeah, and I think you're right. I think that has been a detriment, but also a positive in my life. I remember, I don't remember who said it to me, but it was use all the gifts you're given, to do whatever you're doing. And I really wanted to be a musician,
Yeah.
I'm a really good guitar player. I'm actually a really good singer. I'm a trained jazz singer.
Wow.
Jazz singing lessons in Vancouver. I I don't know if it was ADD. I don't know if it was the drug use. I don't know, but I couldn't write a song, a traditional song. I
Right.
remember in creative writing, my creative writing teacher pulled me. He said, "Okay, everyone go home, but Ken, stay here for a second." And he proceeded to tell me the story of Goldilocks and the Three Bears. Very basic story, but he told it painfully slow. And I said, "Okay, I get it. What the fuck are you trying to tell me?" He goes, "This story, unlike your story, has a beginning, a middle, and an end. There's like basic structure, and that's the way I always was. Whether I seem to have no context. I was just so busy being creative, I didn't really put it in. So when I wrote songs, there was no story necessarily. There was great chord structure. There was a great bridge, but the lyrics just whatever weren't there, and so I think the thing that got me into photography was being honest with myself, objective with myself about, okay, I'm not going to make it. And I knew people who were like just amazing musicians that were stars in their own right, but they weren't even making it. And so I wasn't going to make it.
Yeah, but that happens all the time. That's kind of the amazing thing, is that you can see somebody, now, especially with the internet, you can go on and see guys that are unbelievable playing in the street.
Yeah.
I mean, there's clips of David Gilmour walking up to guys on the street and go, "Can I play with you?"
Yeah.
But they're, for whatever reason, they don't make it.
Yeah, that's so, I don't know. I'm glad that they have an audience, but that to me is just sad. That's a sad image. I knew so many people that were so creative and that deserve to be famous. But, in the industry, you can't just be good at what you're doing. You can't be just a good guitar player. You have to be a performer. There's a difference between being a good guitar player and being a performer. And then they have looks they're looking for. They're filling,
Yeah, but music actually, doesn't it go through periods where they're so focused on what the person looks like and what they're projecting and everything, they don't even bother with talent.
They used to not be like that. I mean, there's a lot of great examples. In Canada, I think we're different than the rest of the world. I think that we're, Rena McNeil, people that don't really fit that mold of that pop star. We definitely have a lot more of that than, let's say, other countries. I think other countries definitely have this mold that they're doing, But I think that what that moment was for me when I realized I wasn't going to make it, but I still wanted to be in the music industry. And I had gone to school for, Coca-Cola. I had gone to art school for oil painting and sculpture, and this concept of lighting was,
Not even in there?
Well, it's familiar to me, because when you paint and when you do sculpture, you have a great sense of lighting. And so I just one day picked up a camera and decided, well, if I can't be a musician, I'll be a photographer of musicians. And I knew all these musicians. Like, I knew them. I had access. Right. So you could be the greatest photographer in the world, but if you don't have access to these people,
it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. You could be the worst photographer in the world, but you have access to these people. They're interesting photos. Luckily, I wasn't the worst. I started off with a little Sony point and shoot that was 10 megapixels. And I remember going to shows and pushing real photographers out of the way. Like, I was just arrogant. But I would stay the whole night, and I would lay down in the booze and the dirt, and I would shoot up from my back, get these crazy angles that these guys weren't willing to do. Because these guys were coming in with these really big cameras with these really long lenses, standing in the back, taking 3 shots, and then walking out and then claiming that they shot that show.
Right.
Well, they didn't shoot the show. I shot the show. I was there for 8 hours, from 8 o'clock till 3 in the morning, then hang out with the band afterwards and get all these candid shots. And then they were amazing photos just because I stuck around. And then I made enough money with that little Sony point and shoot to buy my own, bigger camera, better camera, and better camera. And then I think within a year and a half, I was published in NME magazine in England.
Wow.
It's like the Rolling Stones of England. And I had made shot some really interesting people. The shot that got into Enemy was a band called Women. One of the members had recently passed away, so that band disbanded. But there was this sort of phenomena of basement concerts going on.
Okay.
And there was this one house in Calgary that had these great basement concerts. And so not only did I get an NME with that band's picture, but I made that house famous. And
So is that, can I ask, because I've talked to, I think I've talked to the owner of that house, that it's almost like it became famous inside with the bands, that if they had a night off or if they needed a place to stay or whatever, they could go there, and then they'd do a little concert in the basement and there was food. And is that the place you're talking about?
it possibly is. It was in Kensington. There was another house, I think you're thinking of, that big white one by the Stampede.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was another one. There was a few.
Oh, okay.
But this was more really art for art's sake, like it was,
Right.
you just, like maybe an audience of 30 people witnessing this band just go all out. This band that otherwise would be selling $30 tickets to a show, and
Yeah.
and you're just hanging out with them, getting drunk with them or whatever. But really candid shots, and really people really letting loose in a place, that you wouldn't normally let loose publicly.
Right.
Yeah. So really cool stuff. But and then I've just always been funny. My mom's funny, I'm funny. And so I just, one day got on stage and tried being funny, and it worked.
Do you have anything written down for your first time on stage?
I did. I used to do big whiteboards. I don't know where it is now, but I used to do these big
Right.
whiteboards, write out the joke, and then just pare it down, like just cut away the excess until it was just the most shortest version, the most powerful delivery that, just boom. I knew that every word was right where it needed to be. And so I practiced that a lot. And then the way that I would say it or whatever. But I took out all, if I could take out
All the fat.
or any unknowns. The last thing you need is more unknowns when you go on stage. Like
Oh, see, and you know what, honestly, I do not have a plan.
yeah. Well, I don't have
just-
a plan. It's just that the joke is made the most effective that I think that I could have made it. So
Right.
So really, it's just how I deliver it at that point, whether I blow it or whether I don't blow it. But the joke is solid. Like, it doesn't have fat.
Yeah, but they don't always, like, every joke doesn't always work the same every time.
No.
And I found, somebody asked me after I quit drinking, they said, well, are you going to be funny? And I thought, I'm kind of hoping I'll be more funny,
Yeah.
since I really kind of have a clear head and theoretically know what I'm doing.
Did you have that fear that you weren't going to be funny?
No, but you know what? I've painted a bit and done a bit of sculpting. I've done none of that since I quit.
Why do you think that is?
I'm going to chalk it up to time, but probably I don't know if I can do it.
That's funny because I have an app that calculates the amount of money that I saved from not doing drugs. But it also calculates
I would never want to know that.
and it also calculates the time that I saved. Whether I'm looking
Yeah.
for it, on it, or coming down from it. And it was like,
Oh, it's a part-time job.
It's-
Sometimes a full-time job.
yeah, so in like a little over, like close to 4 years, I've saved 5,000 hours. 5,000 hours that I wasn't present in the real world
Right.
at all.
I found a really old song. I don't know if you've ever heard it, but who was? I'll have to think about who it was, but it was the good times I've missed having good times. And it was just that they were out partying, drinking, doing drugs, and all the rest of their life that they missed because they thought they were having a good time, but they were just, not having the other good times.
Yeah.
It's kind of a bizarre way to look at it, but
No, I think that's accurate. I don't know. Like, my idea of fun before was like going out and saying shit for reactions. You know what I mean? Like, if I was at a bar and I was drunk,
Just for effect.
I would say something to somebody that I knew was a button. And just to see, it was like a wild experiment, you know, and what would happen after that. And for me, that was almost like Andy Kaufman, you know, like just push
Yeah.
that button and see what happens.
Yeah,
you
for
know?
the fun of it.
Even though if it's a big red button and it says, whatever you do, don't push this button.
But that makes it more inviting.
Push that button, right? But you don't make friends.
No.
And if you do have friends, they're temporary. After, you know, you can only push that button so many
Well, that's kind of that whole world. It's not a lot of long friends
Yeah.
in that hall.
No. And they're dying, or they're, you know, how committed are they to even being a friend at that point? You know, whatever. Like when I went into a bar that I used to go to a lot. I think I even put people through college and stuff. I'd gone there for 20 years. And I saw the same people in the same stools sitting there after 20 plus years, complaining about how nothing ever happens to me.
Yeah, well, you're...
Go outside.
Yeah,
like leave the door. Like there's a whole world out there. But to each his own. I can't speak for other people.
But I think a lot of entertainers do that too. I had somebody say to me, and I've got a lot of really good opportunities in TV and in comedy. And when I first got on A Channel here on the morning show, I had a guy tell me, he said, well, I'm just going to quit because you get everything that's out there. And I said, I'll tell you how I got my job in Calgary on A Channel. I drove, they wouldn't even talk to me here. I drove to Edmonton. I put on a suit in a parking garage, went in for the interview, got offered the job at Edmonton, then asked that news director to help me get the job in Calgary. I said, I'm not moving to Edmonton, but I want that job in Calgary. I need you to get me in. And he did it.
That's great.
Yeah, which is oddly enough. And so this guy told me, why would I even try? You got the job. You always get the job. And I said, did you even apply?
Yeah.
And he said, well, no. You didn't even try. Like, of course you didn't get it.
I love that story. Yeah, I mean, like, I know what happens if you don't try. Nothing.
Nothing.
Nothing ever. I mean, there's a guarantee of nothing, right? And I love, like, anything that I've ever done is because I went out and I tried. I just tried. And amazing things happen if you just try.
And, you know, it's funny. I don't know about you. I don't get, it's not outwardly obvious if I'm nervous or scared of doing something, but it's at my core, petrified.
Yeah.
But it's almost like that being petrified of it, there's the challenge.
How good do you think you'd be at straight face? Like if you were telling me the most obscene thing, how well could you keep your face just straight and not smirk?
I've said some pretty obscene things to people and not smiled.
Yeah. I love that. To me is one of the best comedic abilities is the straight face.
Yeah.
I love the straight face, but it really confuses people. Like, is he joking?
See, and I go with more the see how much you can get away with by being charming about it. And I've had people after shows saying, you say the worst things I've ever heard, but you don't seem to have any malice. So, and there's no hate in my heart for what I'm saying.
That's like that joke about Scottish and Irish. They're like, no matter what a Scottish person says to you, it sounds like they're going to fucking kill you. It's like, yeah, I fucking love you. You know, it's like, it's really harsh. But then no matter what an Irish person says to you, it sounds like they love you. I'm going to cut off your head and shit down your throat. It's like, honey, come meet this guy. True. This guy's amazing.
I worked a cruise ship one time, and probably 800 or 900 of the people on it were Brits. And I had this little old lady come up.
Dunkirk?
Yeah, no. So this little old lady comes up to me and she says, oh, you're the comedian. I said, yeah, I am. She said, I saw your show the other night. I said, oh. And she said, I don't fancy you much. And I thought, she just told me she hated my show, but it sounded so nice.
Right.
You know, and I actually said, thank you, and walked away and thought, what am I, a moron? But, you know, you can't scream at somebody's nana.
No.
Well, I'm not saying I haven't, but you can't on the cruise ship and keep your job. But
I don't know. Like I I'm starting to believe that old people know exactly what they're fucking doing.
Oh yeah.
No, they're not innocent.
No.
They know what they're doing, and they know what they can get away with.
I have told more than one old guy that, just the fact that you got old doesn't mean you're now allowed to be an asshole.
Right.
It does
No,
no.
I've seen such belligerent old people just cut right in front of me in line and then look back and give me the look like, what are you gonna do about it? And they're right, but they're hiding behind that.
Yeah, but imagine their shock if you torque them one. Just tuning the old guy up.
Yeah. Yeah, what are you in for? Beat up the old guy. Yeah, beat up the old guy.
Yeah, it is true though.
But
Like
they know what
just,
they're doing.
yeah.
No, they know what they're doing. Like I used to have sympathy. Oh, this cute old person. No, now I don't trust them at all. No, I'm like, what's that person? When I see an old person now, I get suspicious. I'm like, what are they up to?
What are they
What
planning?
are they? Well, yeah, they're plotting. Oh, they're in a group. Well, that's not good.
Well, they're down to a limited amount of time to fuck with people,
Yeah,
so they got to do it
yeah, they're efficient.
because they're not positive there's going to be a heaven or hell.
Yeah,
So they got to get the job done while they're here.
yeah. No, yeah. So I don't know. I mean, but then, and then when I decided I was going to do comedy sober, I remember I just happened to be coming by your place.
Yeah,
And
we
then
were
I told
talking.
you about that. And to this day, I tell that story to people about how I wanted to do it sober, and you were really helpful. And then I think it was 15 minutes before they said, hey, you're going to go on stage. I messaged you and said, oh, they're going to put me up. And you were like, I'll be right there. And you actually stopped what you were doing. And you
Yeah.
came down. You had a baseball hat and a trench coat. You came in incognito. And you sat there and you watched my set. I thought it went well. Thought it was really good.
You were very funny.
Yeah, and I was really happy with it. But the strangest thing happened to me after that. I did it. I got over that fear, because it was overwhelming fear.
Yeah.
Sober. Oh, am I gonna be able to do this? Am I gonna be funny? Da-da-da. I got friends here. Holy shit. Jebb's here.
Yeah, that matters.
No, to me it did. There's people in my life that I look up to that are mentors that have done more than me. You're one of them. You definitely have done way more comedy than I've ever done in my life. And so you don't want to, you don't want to do it in front of somebody like that and then completely bomb. Because think of, what are they going to say to you afterwards? But anyway, so I did it really well. But the weirdest thing happened to me after that was that I didn't really feel the need to go do it again.
Which is okay.
Yeah, but I got through the fear.
So the little nagging voice is gone.
Yeah, but I did it. What I do like is being funny with people.
Yeah.
I love writing comedy. I love, that's what I love about Facebook, that little thing. It's like, or Twitter, you have a small amount of space to write your idea, your joke.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't fit in there, well, your joke was too long anyway,
Yeah.
right? If you can't be funny in that little space, then it wasn't funny.
I see, and I love what I like about Facebook is I'll not put anything on there. I won't even post stuff for my business for a while.
Yeah.
And then I'll post something that's just so I know it's going to incense people, and I do it for that reason. And
Yeah.
I put something in the other day that said, how about, we try to pay people to go get shots. We try to,
Yeah.
cajole them into it. So how about you show up at the hospital and you have COVID and you haven't been vaccinated, then now you have to pay for your visit.
Yeah.
It's not free anymore. Because you could have. So all of these people, what amazes me is that it's kind of a blanket statement to me. It's like a thought, an idea. It's not a, hey, we got to do this. It's just, so what if? And people took it so personally and then one lady said, okay, so now if you're obese and you go to the hospital, you have to pay because you could have cured that yourself. Or diabetes, stop eating sugar. Or all those addicts should be getting free medical. And I wrote back to her, I said, I'm going to guarantee you one thing that I know for sure as an addict. I know that any addict, anybody fighting obesity or fighting diabetes, if you told them, hey, if you go down to the drugstore, they got a shot and that'll be gone. be a big giant lineup.
They'd take it.
Sure.
Yeah, that's what I don't understand. It's like regardless of where you think it came from or who did what, or it doesn't negate the fact that it's here.
Yeah.
Like, like it's here, regardless of where it came from or who did what. It's here. So how do we deal with it now that it's here? And it's,
Well, I know my son basically, because I'm an addict, that he feels that that's why he became an addict, and his life has been difficult. And I ended up writing a joke about it because that's how I handle shitty stuff. And I said, here's the thing about it is hereditary. Like a lot of people that come from that world end up in that world. And I said my dad had two things. He was an incredible alcoholic and had a huge cock. And I ended up as an alcoholic. I had a 50-50 shot at a porn career.
yeah. Shit. You missed out. Well, that's so
I know
good.
it's a bad.
No, I think it's hilarious. Oh my god. I don't know. Yeah.
So was there a history in your family though?
Yeah, my biological dad, my dad left when I was 3. I never saw him again. He went and had another family. We'll get back to that later. But I remember the last memory, like when I was a kid, he was a homicide detective in Regina. And so
No drinking in that profession.
no, so
eh?
he'd come home and just smoke and drink scotch and just stare at the TV. That's what I saw of him. And then he was so uninterested in being my father that I think I remember visiting him and then him telling my mother that I was just a fucking spoiled fucking brat. That he was just really, not interested. But what he didn't know is that my mother had then gone with my stepfather, who was a Vietnam vet. Oh man, from Newport News, Virginia, and she had met him. He was stationed in Minot. He came up to Saskatchewan and met her, and then brought her down back to Minot, and they got married. And so I had a black stepfather with a white mother in North Dakota in the 80s. And he was a mess, the stepfather. So my real dad was an alcoholic who didn't want to have anything to do with me. My stepfather was a raging alcoholic, Vietnam vet who happened to be black in the whitest part of America with a mixed marriage. And so that it was just, so it was not the ideal upbringing. It was very abusive. And then we got out of that and we came back up, and then there was this opportunity for him to, re-enter my life, and he never did. It wasn't until I was 40, like 44, his other kids contacted me and said, "Hey, we'd like to start a relationship with you."
Wow.
And I said, "Fuck that." I said, "Well, like what? Well, then what am I supposed to do? Like, come visit you and ignore that guy that's standing in the corner that was supposed to be my dad but chose to be your dad instead? Like, how am I supposed to have this relationship?" And I think it was unreasonable, and it was unreasonable for them to just assume, And then whenever I said anything, negative about their dad, and that he'll forever be their dad,
Yeah.
they would, "Oh no, you've got them all wrong." And I said, "No, I think you've got them all wrong."
Yeah.
Because I have proof of these things. He did these things, and people do those things. But anyway, so if I did any alcohol or drugs or whatever, I think it was because I just didn't have a really solid father figure. And then after that, I was raised by my mom and my sister. And then so those pinnacle points of my life, I was just like, I didn't have a functional male role model. So I turned to my friends, I turned to drinking, I turned to smoking, But I think that this used to infuriate me when people said, "You're responsible for your own addiction, not anyone else." Like, whether it's hereditary or not, you choose to pick up the drink. You choose to do that drug. And it used to make me so mad because I was like, yeah, but what about this? What about that? What about that? But ultimately, after 4 years of sobriety, I kind of agree with that. Like, if you don't pick up the drink, you don't get drunk.
Yeah. See, the issue to me is that the worst part of trying to get sober is is the most difficult part is the first couple of years.
Yeah.
You're the most vulnerable. So like the going right back to it, you just keep doing it. And then the further away you get, it gets easier. But the relapse rate is so high.
That first year,
That
first 3 months.
yeah, it's just brutal. And there's,
Yeah.
you know, I mean, somebody said to me, can't you just put that bottle down? And I said, apparently not.
Well, it's the loneliest time that you'll ever have, because one of the greatest stories that somebody told me was about this guy that goes by this this lake, and it's the grossest lake in the. It's got shit in it. It's got used condoms, needles, gasoline. It was like horrible. Nothing can live in it. And he sees a fish on the edge of that lake, and it's just about to die, but he saves it. He takes it home. He nurses it back to health in a fresh water, and the fish is doing great. But then he realizes it's a wild animal. He needs to release this fish back. He can't keep the fish, in a tank like that. So he goes and he takes the fish back to that lake and throws it back in, and it dies. Of course it's going to die. We have to change the ponds that we swim in. Our new lives are going to cost us our old lives. And in doing that, it's the loneliest time that you'll ever have. And without support, it can be detrimental. People have killed themselves because of it.
Sure.
Because you feel so isolated. All of your friends were users. All of your friends were drinkers. Now you have nobody that you can talk to because you don't want to drink or you don't want to do drugs. And if you hang out with these people, you're gonna.
Yeah.
So.
But even if you have friends that don't, by the time you get there, there's so little trust left.
Yeah.
Like they can't even trust you.
Yep. But when you change your life, sometimes the best thing is just to stay the fuck out of someone's life for a while, and let time do its thing. That's the thing about addicts. Addicts want everything now. We're not very patient.
No.
I want you to forgive me right now. You forgive me right now. God damn it.
But I asked.
Yeah. What do you mean? It takes time. What is this shit?
Well, that's what cracked me up about the whole men's.
Yeah.
And part of it is as long as it's not detrimental to the other person. And I realized that I went to people and told them the truth, and especially my family found out everything. And what I did was all of this guilty shit I had inside of me, this black box of crap, I just went and told them about it and went, there you go. And now I got rid of it, but I gave it to them.
Yeah, it's like watching a snuff film. You don't want to watch that because it's in your brain now.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
I don't want to know all that shit. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. And it's hard. It's hard to learn how to do an amends so that you don't do that to somebody. And you have to learn how to do it properly to make sure that you just say, this is what I did was wrong, and just leave it at that.
Yeah.
And there's such a instinct to add, and this is why. Here's my justification.
Yes. There's, and you can't lay it off on your addiction. You can't just go, well, I was an addict. I've had people come to me when I was still using, and they would be doing their amends. And at the end, I would go, that's okay, no worries. I don't remember any of that. And they would just look at me like they poured their heart out, and I'm like, boy, I can't believe you did that. That sounds horrible.
That's the truth. I mean, we get so worked up about what we think the other person is thinking about us, and most of the time they're not even thinking about us at all. They could give two shits.
Most of the time.
They have a life. They have things going on, and it is so arrogant and it's so self-absorbed to think, oh, that person must be just so thinking about me and so angry at me. And a lot of times when you go and talk to them, they're like, oh, yeah, okay, no problem. Yeah.
I hadn't thought about it. There's a great line in a Bette Midler movie. I don't remember which one, but she meets this guy, and she obviously, the guy's attracted to her. She's attracted to him. She just keeps talking about herself. And then finally she goes, oh, enough about me. What about you? What do you think about me?
That's funny.
And it's just that.
She's awesome.
Yeah.
Do you know the bubblegum story about her audition?
No.
So this is true. She comes into this audition for the major movie, the first major one. I can't remember the title. Something Girl or something. I can't remember the name. But she comes in, sits on a stool in this big theater, starts to do her lines, fucks up, and goes, "Oh, excuse me," and she's chewing gum. Takes the gum and sticks it to the bottom of the stool. Starts over, nails the audition, and walks out. They come down, they turn the stool over. There's no gum. She had pretended to have gum in her mouth to give herself a second chance.
Pretty smart girl.
Yeah, and then nails it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it was Bette Midler. I don't know if it was her, but she said,
Have you auditioned for stuff?
"If you worry, you're gonna die. If you don't worry, you're still gonna die. So why worry?"
I think I'm the worst audition ever. I've been on auditions where I know they like me, and they're going, "Okay, now could you do it a little more pizzazz?" And I would go, "No,"
Dance monkey.
and I would just say, I'm not going to do that."
Yeah. There's definitely a difference between like
I-
being the funniest person in the world, but then here you're auditioning, and it's just different. It's different.
Yeah.
It's different, right? Like,
Well, who was it? Gabe Kaplan. We were working with him in Montreal,
I
and
love
he
Gabe
he
Kaplan.
told this story about he was in Vegas doing some small room. Then they had this theater show,
yeah.
and it was all impersonators, comedy impersonators.
That's Welcome Back Kotter, Gabe Kaplan, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Gabe Kaplan goes over and watches the show, and then he goes to the guys running the show, and he says, "Hey, you know what? I'm looking for work. I could come and do this show." And the guy said, "Well, we'll let you read for it." So he's got to audition to play himself
Yeah.
doing stand up for the show, and he says he goes and does the audition, and the guy says, "I don't know how to tell you this. The other guy does you better."
That's hilarious.
And Kaplan says, I went to the show that night, and you know what? He did.
Yeah, he did it.
He did me really well.
That's funny. Yeah.
It's such a bizarre. I don't know how you do it with the art. With well, you've taken something that you think is this perfect thing, and it's because I do food too, right? Like
Yeah.
I'm willing to admit that what my food is may not be your taste. You know, it doesn't happen often. I try to keep everything between the lines and make sure everybody's happy with it. But for when you're doing photography,
Yeah.
you can take something that you think is like the best picture ever, and somebody could just go, "Nah,"
That's true.
and just blow it off. Like, how do you deal with that?
That's not an easy. That's not a small answer. So get ready. First of all, we have to realize that when you're landlocked, the culture that hits here is being trucked in. You know, literally.
Yeah.
You know, magazines, whatever. I think the internet has changed that quite a bit, but still, our local influences. So, if my influence is the guy that I know down the street or the guy that I see in town, then my world is fairly small. My influence is small. You still have an influence, but it's small. I came up with this idea of sort of municipal, sort of provincial, national, and international sort of scales of art. I think that to my benefit, I had lived in Montreal, I had lived in Vancouver, I was hanging out with some people, you know, artists and musicians. I was hanging out with Rufus Wainwright and Lorca Cohen, Leonard Cohen's daughter, in Montreal. I was producing shows. Back then, I was doing stand-up performance poetry with a bass player behind me, doom, 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 doom. I was doing that, and I was going to the old jazz clubs in Montreal, Cat, there's Cafe Cat, and then there was another one called the Jello Bar, which was really cool. The red curtain you go through, and then had all the sort of jelly bean styled 50s tables, and you know, a jazz singer on the stage and stuff, and then I moved to Calgary, you know, for whatever reason, and just none of that was here. Not even to a minute level. And then anytime they did try to achieve that, it was snuffed out. It was snuffed out, you know. And so when I decided to be a photographer, having done like, art school, having learned about art, the history of art, those that have come before me, just like you would do in comedy, you would
Yep.
study comedy, those that have come before me, for just the sake of knowing that you're not going to claim that you invented something that was invented by somebody else. Because I've seen that. I've done that. Oh, look what I did. And then I find out it's this guy. I'm like, shit. But so I studied photography. I studied right from the very beginning, Talbot and Daguerre, all the way up to what was happening in the 20s and 30s and 40s in Vogue magazines. Highly suggest people looking at those. Into modern stuff on the coast and Vogue, fashion magazines and what they're doing. So that when I started doing it here, it was just on another tier. It was just on another tier. And so when I take a good photo, and let's preface this by saying that when I first started, and I think this is very common for a lot of people that are starting, you just throw everything you shot out for everyone to see.
Right.
You're not objective at all, and you think everything that you've taken is great. It's the most amazing thing, and it's not, and it's shit. And I think that when I started, I had the biggest ego and the biggest attitude with the least amount of talent. But I had to have that
To get through.
to force myself into those rooms and get those jobs. But then as I learned, the equipment and learned, and I had like 6 lights, and I would use all, it was really bright, too bright, overexposed. But then as I became better, I didn't need that ego anymore. I was allowed into rooms. I didn't have to fight for shit. I maybe use 1 or 2 lights now because the skill takes over for the equipment. And so now when I look at my stuff, I'll take 100 photos, whereas I used to post 20 or 30. There's maybe 1 or 2 that I will go, okay, that is a good one. That is a good one. And the ability to edit yourself, no matter what you're doing, comedy, painting,
Yeah.
music, photography, is I think the thing that will get you the furthest.
See, I've always had this theory, which a lot of people don't get, is I put as much weight in a really good review as a really bad review.
How so?
Well, if I get a really good review, I don't think I'm the king of the world. And if I get a really bad review, I don't think I'm a piece of shit. I know the truth is somewhere in the middle. Like I may have, like for a really good review, I may have just done a show that spoke to that guy that night. For the really bad one, I may have done something that spoke to that guy for all the wrong reasons. That I've been told before I shouldn't be allowed to speak about things on stage, which drives me fucking insane. It's just like, you can't tell me what I can and can't. And you know what, if I do a corporate show, if I come to your corporate party, I do a really nice, clean show. I make everybody laugh. And my goal is to not ruin the night for anybody and help them have a good time. If you come to the club, you buy your tickets, you take your chances.
Yeah.
And so I don't see anything wrong with that. And I'm less worried about my career going somewhere from those shows than I am. Like, I'd rather do the show I want to do. And when I do the club, I do the club for me. I don't do it for the audience. If they want to come along for the ride, and a lot of people do, God bless them, that's the way I do that now, as opposed to being worried about.
Yeah.
But if you can't only listen to good reviews is kind of the point.
But also, I think with photography, I can keep taking the shot until I have the best one, and then I've got the best version of that. And I can keep showing people the best version of that shoot over and over and over and over again. Whereas with live performance, each night is different.
Well, the audience is such a big variable, right?
Right. But with art, I can go, this is the best one. And that's it. And that's all I'm going to let you see. I'm not going to show you the 20. What was
I know what you're saying.
my favorite quotes is, I think it's Salvador Dali. He said he knew the secret to being a genius is act like one. And so I've learned that if you only put out your good photos, then people only see your good photos. So you're a great photographer because you don't show anyone your shit photos,
Yeah.
right? So you do have control, some control over how people perceive you, you know. And I learned that lesson, you know. I had to go back and get rid of all the shit, you know, and no one's going to see that. It was just that. Because I think we develop and we change, right? Like, I'm sure there's shows that you look back on and go, oh my God, you know, like, that's not me now. I'm more
Yeah.
refined. I'm better, you know.
I think a big thing for, we should mention too, before we're going to throw this back in there, that look for us. We're on Facebook, Instagram at Sober Not Sane. And you can like and subscribe at YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts if you want to see more of this. And I want to, you know what I do? I want to get into some of your actual photographs.
Well, I wanted to say thanks for having me. It means a lot for you to have me here today. So I wanted to say thank you for that.
Well, you're welcome.
All right.
There's a reason. You know what? I
Sober,
wanted
not
somebody that is on a similar path right now and has done far more different realms of art than I have.
I would never have thought that when I first met you at the A Channel breakfast show that I'd be sitting here, how many, like a couple decades later, doing a
Yeah.
podcast called Sober Not Sane with Jebb Fink.
Yeah, but we might have thought that because we didn't think we'd be alive now.
That's true. Or, yeah. But that's a great thing to me because the future is never written.
So if you could tell us a little bit about this, that's a great shot.
That is, what's going on? That's a folder, photograph of a folder I took. I made it look
It looked,
remarkably
I
like-
believe, that folder.
Right, like, just double click on a photo. Top one,
Start anywhere.
double click. Well, start at the beginning. Quick look. Yeah, but I don't like that bar at the bottom. Oh, there you go. So that was the Calgary Underground Film Festival. I was the first photographer to do their seasons.
So was that was a like a commissioned piece?
It was an ad campaign called, what was it, Real Life. It was a documentary series, so it was this idea of people doing private things and being spied on. You know?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so she's like, oh, I'm in the bathroom, you know, and so, yeah, Real Life Worth Watching was the tagline. And so we did a whole series. But anyway, this was a local musician, Lori Fuhr, that we lit. So you have all this. What you don't see is this very small bathroom. I'm using a wide-angle lens, and you have all these lights all just around me.
Because it looks enormous.
Right. But it's such a small space, and we literally have a halo of lights around me to get rid of the shadow, or as much shadow as we can, and to make it look as clean as possible. You know, and I'm taking the shot. I think I'm lying down on the ground, shooting up, you know, just to get that shot, or crouched very close to the ground. And then again, there's, you know, several different versions, but that went out in the ad, as part of the ad. And so there was another one that I didn't put on here that was used on billboards across Calgary, of all these directors of different documentaries in the festival jumping on skateboards while a guy's eating popcorn. And what it was like, I'm a big proponent of not using Photoshop at all. None of my photos have Photoshop. It's if we need a background.
It is what it is.
If we need a background, we go find that background. We don't put it in post. I mean, I have done green screen for movie posters, but that's exception. Other than that, I don't use Photoshop.
Can we see another one?
That's interesting. That's Kaisa. It's a bit blurry here, but that is 6 different types of paint being thrown at Kaisa. Obviously, we could only do that once. So this is funny. I'm drunk, and I have 6 people. Sorry.
Yeah,
So-
can't hear it.
So that's Kaisa with 6 different cans of paint being thrown.
How do you
once.
talk her into that?
I don't know. They had wine. It's part of my rider at this point. I'm drinking as much as I want. I'm drunk at this point, I believe. I'm like, this is what we need to do. We have the paint. The thing was that I had to have 6 people throw the paint at the same time. So we had to practice 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and as we're about to throw it, all the power goes boom, just shuts off, and the stress. And I remember yelling, "What's wrong with you people?" And then I like realized that came out of my mouth, and then, but it was great. She was living in New York. I saw some pictures of her, and I approached her and I said, "Listen, I would really like to photograph you." I didn't even know that she had family here, and then she came through Calgary and we shot. So,
Oh wow.
yeah, she's now like a legit pop star that's worked with Skrillex and Diplo. Her major songs have over 500 million views on YouTube. She's doing really
Wow.
well. Yeah. Next. That's Art Bergman. I have a great story about Art Bergman. First of all, Art Bergman is Order of Canada recipient,
Yeah.
the highest civilian order award you can get, I believe. Nominated for the Polaris Music Prize twice. Both albums I had my photography on. So I saw him when I was 17, and he was touring with a band called Sons of Freedom and Pure, and he was like us. He was doing things he shouldn't have been doing, and
Okay.
he was very hard to get along with, so they kicked him off the tour. He wasn't kicked off the tour, but he wasn't allowed to travel with the other people, so he had to find his own way to the shows. His band had left him. So I'm sitting there. He comes in just with a guitar, lights a cigarette, starts playing one song. Halfway through the first song, he just throws a guitar on the ground, lays on the stage, starts smoking a cigarette, and starts talking about how much he hates his mom and he hates his sister. I'm on acid. I'm on LSD. I'm 17 or 18. And I'm like, this is the best concert I've ever seen in my life. 20 plus years later, I have been published in Enemy Magazine. I approach him. I think he's in Vancouver. I go, listen, Art, tell him the story. I said, just for my own, portfolio, I need to photograph you. I'll fly out to Vancouver if I have to make this happen. So take a look at my stuff, and if you like it, let me know. So he calls me back like 2 days later. He goes, absolutely, I love your stuff. Let's do this. He goes, but there's one problem. And I go, what's the problem? He goes, I live in Airdrie. So the next day he just drives over in a minivan. He's playing guitar in front of my little girl. She's like 1 or 2 at the time. And I end up doing 3 album covers with him, and
Wow.
ended up being his friend, playing chess with him at his home, and and really, really getting to know him. And for me, that was such full circle, from seeing him when I'm 17, much like you, just like this whole circle thing. And it's really been really quite astonishing that this keeps happening to me. But yeah, he's a great guy. He has a degenerative back disorder. So when you see him now, he's crouched over,
Right.
like
Yeah.
debilitatingly so. But as soon as you give him a guitar and put him on stage, he straightens up, plays the whole show, and then as soon as he's
Right
back
back.
down. So, he's a brave man. He's really intelligent. He deserves the Order of Canada. I'm really happy for him. He's clean, lives in a little farmhouse. Same wife. They're doing great. Sherry Decembrini. Yeah.
That's
Love you,
excellent.
Art, if you're listening. This is a great example of how I like to play with photos. Obviously, it looks like they're hanging. I just had them lie. This is a great example of what I would consider a really interesting photo that a band never used. I did this for the band, and they never once used it in a promotional material.
Nothing.
Nothing. And I always thought that was a waste of a photo. Next. Jenny Allen,
Been around for a while.
local hero. She's in Nashville now, doing really good. Her first album was produced by Valdi. I've known her for a long time. I've been through a lot with her. I've watched, a lot of ups and downs and different bands and different things. She's just a great human being.
She mostly songwriting now?
Songwriter, singer,
Yeah.
yeah. She was in a band called The Fates for a while. Yeah.
We had her on the show.
Yeah, she's a great voice.
Yeah.
Next. Another great example of perspective. Again, the band never used this for any promotional material whatsoever. It's a waste of a photo. I'm putting it out there. If you're in the band, you know who you are. Waste of a photo. I love that. This is Andrew Fung, Kim's Convenience. This is a great story. So I had done a photo of Andrew Fung, sorry, um, that was in Avenue magazine. And when I went to rehab, I was so down on myself. I was just like, this is like, first of all, no one believes when I tell them what I do or what I, like, no
Yeah.
one gives a shit.
No.
I'm a photographer. And the person's like, there's UFOs are coming to get, like, I'm in a psych ward. But the Avenue magazine was there, and I opened it up, and there's my photo of Andrew Fung in the Avenue magazine. And so that was, like, just very reassuring to have some semblance of who I was at that place. That I kept that magazine.
Little reminder.
Yeah, next. That's just a great photo. I like it. It reminds me of Helmut Newton. I love the idea of, instead of chasing someone, having them run through your focal point. I like the little bit of blur. It creates that motion.
Yeah.
Some of the greatest photos are not in focus at all. It's all about mood. I have so many people who are like, I need the sharpest lens. I need the sharpest lens. I'm like, yeah, well, the sharpest lens is sometimes the most boring lens in the world,
Yeah.
right? How about mood?
A really, really sharp picture nobody cares about
Character,
looking at.
you know.
Yeah.
Some lenses, old lenses, have a patina. So, next. Kaisa, again, I made her look like that sort of 50s, 40s bomber girl,
Yeah.
you know. Next. Kaisa, this one's blurry. Yeah, go. Andrew Fung again. I love that. It's kind of Jerry Lewis.
And you know what? He had been on the show a couple of times, and I did not when I was there, but after Kim's Convenience came on, and I was telling you before, he stopped by the market because he used to do improv
Yeah.
upstairs there, and we were talking. I said, so you grew up here, so that's why you know me. And he goes, oh, no, we've worked together. I was like, well, my apologies.
Yeah. Oops. He's a
And
great guy. He's gracious. He has the world's biggest sneaker collection in his house, like thousands of like top ends. Like you don't understand when people get into
The obsession.
the sneaker game.
Yeah.
Like he has a whole room of sneakers,
And he doesn't wear them.
and you're not allowed to touch them. It's like that Spinal Tap, you know, when he takes them into the room, these are all my guitars, and they're all the same guitar. He's like, don't touch them. He's like, actually, don't even look at them. Next. This is Orit Shimoni. She travels the world. She's an amazing singer-songwriter. She's probably, in my opinion, the modern-day equivalent of Patti Smith
Wow.
and Bob Dylan.
What a great face.
Yeah. She's very strong. Her songs are very, very intense, very well written. Check her out, Orit Shimoni, O-R-I-T. Next. That's my mother of my daughter and me doing that old sort of Nosferatu noir thing. So I learned something here where I falsely assumed that the closer the light was, the crisper the shadow would be. But found out, no, the light has to actually be like 20, 30 feet away in order for you to get a crisp shadow. So I had to tape these cones of paper onto my finger and then hit the timer on the camera. And she would have to act surprised each time. And then I would come in with the paper fingers and try to position the shadow. So I took about 30 shots until I finally got what I think is like a movie still. You know, very cinematic. Next. This is a techno DJ guy from New York that was coming through Calgary. I didn't really know, Riley is his name. He just wanted his photos taken and he paid, and I didn't really know who he was until 6 months after. And then I looked him up, and he's actually quite a prominent techno DJ dude from New York. So, hey, Riley. Next.
I've seen this.
Yeah, I did this experiment with just driving in a car with my camera, holding the shutter open, and just waving my camera around in interesting ways. You know, obviously in fluent ways and emotions to try to get. And I got these really cool light paintings. This is hilarious. So I worked at the camera store downtown for a bit, and this guy that worked with us was leaving the company, and I said, well, listen, as a going away present, why don't you come to the studio and I'll take your portrait as a going away present. And he came and I made him put that on. So that was his going away present portrait. Yeah. That's my cat. This is Ernesto. He needed a photo for his online dating site. So this is the photo I did for Ernesto's online
That's
dating
great.
site. Yeah. That one looks stuffed.
What was the Must Love Dogs?
I don't know.
That was
Yeah.
a movie, I think.
A lot of people tell me what they want, but then I just photograph what I want, and then they get what I give them.
That's a great shot, though.
Jenny Allen again. Very sort of. Oh, this guy's hilarious. This guy from a band called the Sugar Coated Killers. What's his? Svengli Robot, I believe, is his name. But very glam rock. Really cool. Yeah. Just I like the colors in that. Scott Henderson, he's an interesting guy. He's around town. This guy recorded in Prince's Paisley Studios. He's such a talented gentleman. He's worked on a worldwide tour of a Queen type of tour, redoing Queen music. He's got a talent school that he runs called The Show. He tells me these great stories about when you go to Prince's Paisley Studios, you're not allowed to look at Prince when he was alive. You weren't allowed to talk to him. You weren't allowed to make eye contact with him. Even if he talks to you, you're not allowed to make eye contact until he gives you permission. But yeah, so yeah. But I mean, you get to record at Prince's Paisley Studios. You say, okay, you agree to these things, and you go. Is that it? Oh, this is Attila's mom. Attila was this guy. I can't remember her name. I just know her as Attila's mom. But this is Attila's mom. I don't remember her name. I just remember her always having a Mickey of vodka in her coat. And she's since passed. But she was Russian. She was Hungarian, and she was always full of life. And she always just used to walk around, and her son Attila would play all these open stages, and she would go from open stage to watch her son Attila, and always had a little Mickey of vodka. And then she'd she's like 85, 87, and she's like drinking her vodka. And she's just full of life, old country, but here. Yeah. Oh, I did a local library here for a very well-to-do lawyer, and this is his library in his home. This was one of the centerpieces. Just absolutely astonishing. I just like this piece. But he had Che Guevara's cigarette case.
Wow.
Yeah. He had swords actually from the Crusades in this thing. The ceiling tile was this. The Kremlin had their ceilings redone by this Russian guy, and they got the same Russian guy to do their ceiling tiles in this den.
Wow.
Nothing is actually... Like, everything's handmade. The light switches, everything's handmade. There's nothing mass-produced in this room. And it's just absolutely astonishing to be in there. And my job was I took 1,500 photos of all of the decorations and all of the stills of the detail, and that was just my job. And it paid well, and so I did it. But this guy had...
Yeah, but great stuff to shoot.
Yeah, right. Yeah, this guy had signed... Mark Twain's. This guy had signed Hemingway's. Like, this guy, I'm not gonna say who it is.
Yeah,
privacy. But this gentleman has a taste for the finer things in life, and to a scale that you would see other places. Amy Heff, she's a musician. She's out of L.A. and here. She's a sort of a Pat Benatar rock and roller. She's a great singer, great person. This is probably one of the photos that
I love that.
Dave Thomas he was actually on the cover of my coffee table book that I made, but this photo probably gets the most responses from the ladies. It's like that photo. Every time I put it up, just gets bombarded. He's a very interesting guy, very tall, like 6'5" or something.
Wow.
Disaster to go out with in public. Nobody pays attention to you. They're always looking at Dave. Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
you could. It's probably the umbrella.
Yeah. yeah. No clothes and umbrella. Yeah. But he's a great guy. Anyway. Andrew Fung again with his homemade Ghostbusters.
Yeah, I was
backpack
gonna
he's
say
like-
that. I know exactly what that is.
Yeah, he made that himself. So he's a big fan. Anyway. Yeah,
So between that and the sneakers, he's got a full life.
he does. Can I
Yeah.
fill my cup?
Oh, definitely.
I don't know. But, the thing was, you talk about, like, doing multiple things. I'm the kind of guy that, like, I think I might be at the end of photography. I don't know. Because
What do you have in mind?
I don't know. But the thing is, I do something, I do it well, and then I'm like, okay, what's next? Like, I can't imagine doing one thing for my whole life.
See, this is what made us bad employees.
Probably. Yeah. I
Yeah,
don't want to wash your dishes anymore.
When I was doing the morning show, I had it was the best job on TV, probably
Yeah.
in the country. And nobody bothered me. They let me go off and work doing stand up whenever I had to or wanted to, and they couldn't have been more accommodating. And I was always like, well, there's got to be something else.
Right.
And it was just
Yeah. But
And-
that's the thing, though. It's such a tough thing to be. Like, at the same time, you want to be grateful for what you have, but at the same time, I don't think
you
people
don't want to
should.
settle.
You don't want to settle, all right? And so there's a really fine line between that. I don't know. I think there's probably just an approach that needs to be taken. Just like I battle that. God, I battle that. Like, when I was in rehab, they suggested, like, I stayed there for 15 months and they had housing for people, and I wanted to stay for 15 months so that I did it properly and that I didn't go back out. I had too much at stake. I
Yeah.
had a daughter, I had a family, I had a career or semblance of a career. I lost everything, and then they suggested that you take a job that teaches you humility. So I became a dishwasher for a year and a half, and I learned humility. Man, that was tough. Like, you're just the lowest rung in the machine, and people are literally
And treated like it.
throwing dishes at you.
Yeah.
And it's like, and the hours, and just coming home soaking wet and just whatever, and for hardly any money, But the thing was that I was working and I was there and I was going to do a good job. And so the idea that I might not like it, but I'm there. And since I'm there, why not do a good job?
Yeah.
Why not do the best job that I could do, right? But then, eventually humility becomes self-worth, and I didn't need to be a dishwasher anymore to know that I was humble. So I remember just throwing my apron after a year and a half at the guy and say, I'm done. And then a day later, I got a job photographing kids' clothes for a website, and just got on with my shit. But I think people do need humility, and I think that people do. We're not all that important as we'd like to think, and I think there's,
Well, it's funny. For last days on shows, for Dave's last day, he brought me in, and I was on a panel with 3, and it was this I know for sure.
yeah,
And so the other 2 people, well, I know for sure everybody in Calgary is going to miss you being on. Like, they're just, talking about what a great guy he was and
Yeah.
all of this. And he said, Jebb, what do you know for sure? I said, I know for sure none of us are nearly as important as we think we are. And, when I left the show, people were telling me the show won't be the same without you. And you know what? That next Monday, you were there, the show went on, and it's gone on for years without me. And you know what? Monday morning, there's going to be somebody else sitting in your chair, and life is going to go on.
it's a machine.
And that's just the way the world is.
Yeah,
But
the show has to go on.
yeah, well,
Anyone who's ever produced a show
yeah,
knows the show has to go on.
yeah, and you know what? There's a lot of people that could do what I was doing. There's a lot
Right.
of people that could do what he was doing, and
I don't know how many times I've done something where just the craziest shit happens right before some important event,
Yeah.
and then you have to just keep going.
I did a Christmas party one time for a company here in town, and I was so sick. I was trying to get out of it, and we just couldn't find anybody, and so I go and we told him, look, he's sick. The show will be fine. He's not going to be able to talk to anybody. He's going to come in the back. He's going to hear his name, do his show, get out, and go home. So I'm talking to the son of the owner of this huge company. And as I'm talking to him, I'm literally taking turns throwing up into a garbage pail.
Wow.
And the guy goes, "Are you going to be okay?" I said, "Don't have a choice."
Yeah.
And so I've got the water and I'm rinsing my mouth out. They call my name. I go up. I do a 45-minute show for him. I walk off, walk right back to that can
The
and threw
pail.
up again.
Oh my God.
And the guy just looks at me and goes, "How did you do that?" And I said, "Your body shuts off when you're on stage. You
Wow.
never have to pee. You don't have to poop. You don't
Yeah.
have to throw up. You don't have to sneeze. You don't like it. It just, your body's geared to do what you do."
That's cool. It doesn't really happen in other things. Like UFC, they shit themselves all the time.
Really?
Yeah. You get punched in the stomach and you just shit your pants.
Well, there's another reason I won't ever be on the UFC.
So, but like, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, but how much of that was practice for like, I don't know how many times I've gone to work just still stoned and still drunk and still just sweating booze
Yeah.
and stinking and just still having to do the job.
Yep.
Right. And like feeling like I'm going to have a heart attack. Like, oh God, I swear my my pulse. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Am I breathing? Am I breathing? All right. Am I breathing? Having to ask people, do I look okay? But still having to do the job, right? And then like that's stuff I just don't miss at
No.
all. Like not waking up hungover, knowing where I was, knowing that I didn't say something offensive, like knowing that I'm good with what I said, knowing that like the self-confidence that comes out of
Yeah.
sobriety is amazing.
Yeah.
Like I don't have to worry about shit, and if I do, it's because it's something valid,
Well, there's that great little tool of somebody told me the problem. Like I went through a long period where I thought I'm insane. I am out of my mind, and
Yeah.
so I went to see a psychiatrist that just went through and said, "No, you're an addict." He said, "Here's how your world works. I want to drink. Normal people, and you're not a normal person. Normal people go, I'm gonna have a drink. Then they go, you know what? If I have one, I'm gonna have a couple, and I got a meeting in the morning, and I'll feel shitty. I shouldn't." And I said, "So they actually like stop?" And he goes, "Yeah." He said, "You got no stop in you.
Yeah.
You got nothing in your body that, like, nothing else matters than that."
I don't even know what that is. Like anyone who can stop, I look at them.
Oh, I have
like,
no
they're
comprehension
so
of it.
alien to me.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. They used to do this trick question when I first went in. They're like, "Why do you drink?" "Oh, it's hereditary." "No, why do you drink?" Because I'm an alcoholic." "No, why do you drink?" And ultimately, it would come down to because I liked it. I liked
Yeah.
doing it.
Yeah,
I'm not-
smart recovery does that, where write down the good things and the bad things. I'm like, well, there can't be any bad things or any good things about, well, you've done it for 40 years.
Yeah,
You must be getting something out of it.
you liked it,
And that's really, loved it.
but that's part of ownership.
Yeah,
You can't own something that you pretend you didn't fucking like.
yeah.
You know.
The other really interesting thing that I heard from somebody was the reason we're such bad mates for anyone else is because we're already married to our addiction.
Yeah.
There's no room for anything else. That's always going to be first and foremost.
Yeah, but it's also too. I agree with that, and it's also like what crazy lives we've led due to our behavioral problems and the situations that we've put ourselves in. And one of the big problems with sobriety is those plateaus of nothing's going on. There's no drama.
Yeah.
Stability is boring.
Yeah.
It is. And that's the definition.
There's no fire to put out.
Yes, but that's the definition of stability. And that can be really overwhelming for somebody who's used to just constant stimulus. And to realize that those plateaus are temporary. There'll be another level.
So that's funny because I think I'm actually at my peak
Yeah.
when everything is going to total rat shit. I have the most focus. I have the solution.
Yeah.
I have the answers. And the rest of the time, it's just like, ugh. It just...
Like on any given day, my brain is trying to kill me. My brain is trying to tell me to doubt myself. My brain is trying to get me to sabotage shit. My brain is lying to me about my self-worth. Like, if I said to you the things that I say to myself in my brain, you'd punch me in the face. And you wouldn't be my friend. Because they're horrible things that I say to myself. And I've learned to just not trust my brain. Like, literally, like, my brain is full of shit. And it's constant, and it's not something that you can let your guard down. And there's days where I forget, oh, shit, I'm an addict or whatever. Or why do I feel that way, But I think a lot of it has to do with anxiety and trauma, and if people don't deal with their trauma, then you're basically just, you're bailing out a huge ship with a teaspoon. If you don't deal with the things, like drinking and drugging is just the symptoms.
Yeah.
Like, why am I doing this to myself? Why am I trying to kill myself? Why am I trying to sabotage everything? Right? And it's, and until somebody goes through that. And so, I find that, I'll support anybody that wants to get sober, emotionally and whatever. But at some point, when I was in that rehab that I was in for 15 months, I think it was like 13 guys died in a course of 15 months. And so it was not a very good success rate. And the problem is that they were doing a certain amount of drugs. They weren't bad people. They were doing drugs. They got clean. Their tolerance went down.
Yeah.
So that when they went back out, they did the same amount that they thought that they could do, and it killed them instantly. They probably didn't even enjoy the trip, just dead. And when you see that and you see that kind of numbers, it's really disheartening. And I couldn't be around that for too much longer. I had to go, like, for myself. I left after 15 months. I wanted to be around people who don't do drugs, who don't drink. And I don't want to see this constant influx of brand new people who, at that point, just don't fucking get it.
Well, when my first big effort was to not do cocaine.
Yeah.
And I went to a CA meeting. And I'm sitting there listening to everybody. And I got up at a certain point. I said, I got to go. And no offense to anybody in the room, but I don't want to do this anymore because I'm tired of being in bathroom stalls with you assholes.
Yeah.
None of us like each other. None of us like other human beings. But by God, we'll go and cram ourselves into a bathroom stall for a free line.
Right. That's so hilarious. Like, I would not trust the universe to take care of me, or trust not using, but I would trust some guy that I gave $100 to at 3:00 in the morning to come back with my dope.
Yeah, well, what was somebody put out a thing on Facebook the other day that it's about the COVID shots, and it was so you're telling me you won't get a COVID shot because you don't know what's in it, but you eat hot dogs,
Right. Yeah.
Like what?
Well, there's microchips. There's microchips in it. And I'm like, fuck.
Well, that's what I've been answering people, and they said, well, what shot did you get? And I said, brain bleed tumors and microchip. I said, I'm not sure why, but apparently Bill Gates needs to know where I am at all times.
Yeah. Well, he does. And
which really leads right into that, how self-centered are we?
And I need Bill Gates to know where I am at all times.
I want him to know.
I do. I want Bill, if you're out there.
In case he finds an extra $1 billion in his pocket.
I don't know. Whatever. I mean, it's not whatever. It's absolutely, like, in an age that we live in with so much science and so much knowledge, we just seem to be going backwards at a remarkable fucking rate. And it's like one step forward, a billion steps back. It's not even a small amount. And it just seems to be so incredible that I don't know what, when they do those tests with rabbits and mice, and just when the population gets too big, they just stop reproducing and they stop fucking thinking rationally, and they all just start going crazy and just start eating each other. I think that's what's happening with this planet. I think
We're there.
Where our population is too much and we've lost some semblance of
Well,
humanity.
why don't we make a deal, and in 6 months, you come back on, if not sooner, and we see where it's at.
I would love
see
to.
just how fucking ridiculous it's gotten from here.
Sure.
You
Yeah.
Because God knows, if you close the bars at 10, nobody gets COVID.
Yeah, we've covered the sobriety thing. We've covered who we are. Next time we can just go, hey, what the fuck's going on?
We'll do that.
Awesome.
Be sure, Facebook and Instagram, add Sober Not Sane, and like us and subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and what are you trying to tell me?
Thank Liz from Camera Store.
Liz from the camera store.
Yeah, thank her because she's borrowing some of the cameras.
Borrowing some of the cameras. Thanks for stealing the cameras, Liz. But for sure, if we announce it, you're going to get caught. My friend, thank you so much.
Sir, it was a pleasure. Thank you so much.
It's always a pleasure seeing you.
Where can we find you?
Just wandering around.
I mean, like Instagram, Facebook, or stuff like that. Where can you see
Yeah, you can see me on Instagram, just Kenneth Locke. Instagram, Kenneth Locke. Facebook is more private, I think. It's not really a thing. If I don't know you, I'll block you. If I think you're shifty, I'll block you.
Well, I'm still on there.
People with no profile picture, I don't trust that shit. If you, you don't have a profile picture?
But a hand-drawn one
Just,
I'll go
just
for.
a shadow? What is that?
I got one the other day that was obviously it's somebody trolling to try to get old men like me to send them money.
Yeah.
And it says, Karen has recently changed his photograph.
Oh, yeah.
So, it's actually a
Karen.
guy.
Yeah,
You're like the worst
gross.
criminal ever.
A guy Karen.
A guy Karen.
Release the Karen.
Release the Karens.
All right.
All right. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. Sober Not Sane. I'm Jebb Fink. Thank you very much again, Kenneth.
Thank you, Jebb. Sober Not Sane.
We'll see you soon.